The shores of Green Bay are home to a wide variety of water birds, ranging from ducks and geese to gulls, cormorants, and even pelicans. One group in particular, the terns, set themselves apart by their sleek and elegant body shape and agile flying as they pass over the waves of Lake Michigan. Like many other birds, terns face an assortment of threats which put their populations at risk for extinction. Fortunately, plans for conservation exist to help these species recover from the losses that they have experienced in the past. To help us learn about the threats terns face and the conservation efforts being used to counter them, I would like to introduce Professor Robert Howe.
I'm Bob Howe. I'm a professor of natural and applied sciences and biology here at UW Green Bay, and I'm also the director of the Coffrin Center for Biodiversity here.
What type of species of tern are in the Green Bay area of Lake Michigan?
Okay, we have really a premier spot for terns in the state of Wisconsin. We have 4 species of terns here in Green Bay along the shores and wetlands of Green Bay. They are the Caspian tern, the common tern, Forster's tern, and black tern.
What are some of the threats to terns nesting?
In terms of nesting, they have nesting requirements that take advantage of the bodies of water in which they occur to help them avoid predation. They don't build very elaborate nests. Their eggs and young are exposed to, very vulnerable to predators, including things like raccoons, coyotes, even other birds, of course. They tend to nest then in places that are isolated and protected. Islands, muskrat houses, floating mats of vegetation that are difficult to access. So these nesting sites are critical for their success, and they can be limited in the coastal regions where they occur. Their numbers have also declined because of the contamination by toxins which accumulate in the food web, and of course these are fish-eating birds, so they're feeding on other predators that have accumulated these environmental poisons, and they affect the reproductive process in these birds either through thinning of eggshells or through impeded development of the chicks.
Some other harmful materials, such as mercury and selenium, can also move up to higher trophic levels through bioaccumulation. These substances are usually released into the environment from wastewater originating from industrial manufacturing facilities.
What are some conservation plans that are being used to protect or help promote nesting?
The Fish and Wildlife Service has constructed some artificial platforms off the new Cat Island Causeway restoration project, and common terns now have nested successfully during the last couple of years in the lower bay. Again, a really welcome development. It's very exciting.
In addition to nesting platforms for common terns, platforms for Forster's terns have also been used in the lower Green Bay area. The use of artificial platforms is just one method used to promote tern breeding in the Great Lakes. However, each species of tern have different sets of preferences that can make all the difference for a successful breeding season. Some of the conditions tested to determine these preferences include substrate composition, water levels in diked areas, and even ways to deter gulls who both compete for nesting sites and prey on tern eggs and chicks.
Okay, because all 4 of these species are listed as threatened or endangered in Wisconsin, they have the attention of wildlife management biologists for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and in all cases they have a plan aimed at restoring or protecting populations in the state. So in the case of common terns, of course, artificial nest platforms have been established for them. In the case of Caspian tern, the Cat Island Restoration Project has turned out to be, as hoped, a successful opportunity for them to nest. In the case of foresters terns, the protection of wetland, emergent wetland habitat in the lower bay has been the major focus of habitat protection measures. Now, all 4 of those birds, of course, are migratory, and so they fall under the U.S. Migratory Bird Act, and hence they have the attention of federal wildlife management biologists, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has cooperated, or has led in some cases, and cooperated with the Wisconsin DNR in protection measurements for these birds.
While the Migratory Bird Treaty Act was designed to protect migratory birds, it is currently struggling to cope with advances in modern industry. Pressures from oil and gas development, antennas, power lines, buildings, and even alternative energy projects like wind turbines create problems that the Migratory Bird Treaty Act cannot address effectively. Thus, considerations must be made on how to revise the treaty to both conserve and protect bird migration while accommodating for activities which are vital for modern industry.
Also, in Lower Green Bay, we've had efforts to remove toxins from sediments in the Fox River, and this has been a very ambitious, multi-million, close to $1 billion project that is removing these contaminants from the sediments and stopping the bioaccumulation process that affects species like these 4 tern species that are predators and feed on fish that accumulate environmental toxins like PCBs and other chlorinated hydrocarbons. Also, of course, other organizations, including the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay, which manages a preserve, one of the wetland preserves on the east shore of Green Bay, but others, including private citizens, have helped protect wetland habitat that's important for these birds, either for nesting or for feeding. So habitat has been important.
The restoration of natural areas on private land is one of the best strategies for recovering valuable habitat within critical ecological regions. Habitats such as wetlands and shorelines are important for threatened migrating waterbirds as both stopovers and breeding sites. It is important to remember that efforts meant to restore one component of an ecosystem has the potential to influence other components of the same ecosystem.